Good evening. Welcome to the Orange County Historical Society. Thank you for joining us this evening. Have a few announcements to start out with. First of all, I'll just say if you haven't already muted your phone and texts and stuff, we appreciate it if you would do that. Also, we've got a lot of prepackaged goodies back there. So if you could refrain from eating those because the wrapper, during the program, because the wrappers make so much noise, you wouldn't believe. It sounds like, you can't believe it's just a wrapper from across the room. But, anyway, few events coming up. First of all, look for us this Sunday. We're going to have a booth at the Orange County Archives Bazaar, which is going to be held at the old El Toro Marine Base, the Great Park, neither Great nor Park, discuss. I know. And then on a couple of our upcoming programs here, next month, April 13th, we will have a program about the history of Vans shoes and the Van Doren Rubber Company, which is an Orange County institution. And their archivist and historian, Catherine Acosta, will be here to share that story with us. On May 11th, which will be, May is Preservation Month, so we're going to have Linda Sadeghi here to talk about adaptive reuse in Orange County. What do you do with great old historic buildings that have outlived their original purpose? Do you bulldoze them, or, like Linda, do you find great new purposes for them and find ways to save them and bring them to a whole new generation? So she's done some great work with that. Some of you know the lab in Costa Mesa or the packing house in Anaheim, and she's involved in all of that. So then our annual dinner is June 8th at the Springfield Banquet Center, which is the old Fullerton Masonic Lodge, 1920 Spanish colonial revival, beautiful place in downtown Fullerton. There'll be a buffet and a silent auction. There are flyers in the back. Help yourself to one of those. Also, you can actually sign up back here if you want to register. We can help you back here at the orange table. So either Aida or Daniel can help with that. They also have a selection of our books back there, so if you'd like to take a look at any of those for possible purchase, those are there. Anyway, back to our annual dinner. The program will be, the speaker will be author, educator, TV personality, and lecturer George Geary. We'll be talking about the California-born diners, burger joints, and restaurants and fast food that changed America. So California's long been on the forefront of that industry, and our car culture and our fast pace of living resulted in fast food restaurants, coffee shops, diners, and other casual chains. Most were born these were born in Southern California. Some were born in Orange County, and a lot of these chains also eventually made Orange County their home, their base of operations. So we're going to be learning about the entrepreneurs, the buildings, the foods that made all these places famous. So do take a look at the flyers, and I hope some of you will sign up tonight to join us for that. So tonight's program is a follow-up to our speaker's December 2020 presentation to the Society, which spanned Jewish history in Orange County from 1857 to 1940. For those of you who missed it, it is available on our YouTube channel, and I recommend going back to catch up if you missed that. We did that on Zoom during the dark days of COVID. And in any case, we're very glad to have her back, and in person this time. As archivist for the Orange County Jewish Historical Society, Dalia Taft is responsible for increasing the awareness of the role Jews have played in the development of Orange County from 1857, when the first Jews settled in Anaheim, to now. She maintains the Society's archives and is constantly researching and digitizing a growing collection. She lectures regularly and writes a monthly column for JLife, Orange County's monthly Jewish magazine, highlighting images from the Society's archives. She's also the author of the book Jewish Pioneers of Orange County, which will be available to sign and sell at the end of the program right here. So, without further ado, welcome Dalia Taft.
Thank you, Chris. I'm glad to be here in person and not on Zoom. It's much nicer to see people's faces and be able to see their reactions. Or lights?
That's okay.
And we can't see you again, so it's okay. Okay, can everyone see this very clearly? Okay, so as Chris said, this is part two of some of the lectures that I give, and this focuses on after the community was established, and particularly after World War II, how the Jewish community grew along with the rest of Orange County. There was a big influx of soldiers, as we all know, and a lot of them said, hey, this place is a lot better than the Midwest or back east, and they stayed, and we had a huge population growth across the county, and a lot of expansion, a lot of growth of neighborhoods, etc. So Jews were a part of that. I do also want to say that I will also be at the OC Archives Bazaar on Sunday, so if anyone does plan on attending, please stop by and visit. I would love to see you all, and I will have a lot of goodies there, original photos, ephemera, things like that to show people. So I've been doing this for about 15 years. I do want to give it a shout out to John Morlack and his wife Trina, who were instrumental in helping me with the book that is available for sale, and gave me a lot of access to their original material, and really made a difference and were super helpful. So thank you, both of you, welcoming me into your home and that. So anyway, just a little bit of history for those who did not see. Is there anybody here who does not know the early history, did not see the beginning? Okay, so very briefly, and like Chris said, you can go and see it on YouTube. Jews were a part of Orange County since 1857, when Orange County was not Orange County, when it was still part of Los Angeles County. The city of Anaheim was founded by 50 pioneers that we've all heard about. Most of them were German. A third of them were Jewish. And, you know, they were very assimilated, but they were Jewish and they were proud of their Judaism, and it was not something that they hid. In addition to that, they did not experience a lot of the prejudice that Jews experienced back east in the South and in the Midwest. And that was a revelation for the Jewish population, all along the West Coast, by the way. It was just, you know, it was a new frontier, and people were like, hey, if you can work hard and you can contribute to the community, we don't care if you're pink with yellow polka dots, quite honestly. So that was really very unusual. I'm Jewish, and I can tell you the history, our history is not that way, typically. So a lot of the Jews that settled here were very happy to do so because there were so many opportunities and there was a lack of prejudice, anti-Semitism. So they did establish at the beginning in Anaheim and San Juan Capistrano and Santa Ana, and then as the community changed, most of them were in Santa Ana, and that's what you're going to see here. So a lot of them had left the Anaheim area, and they started to spread out to Santa Ana and then also to Fullerton and other South County and North County. So, without further ado, see if I can make this work. Yes. Okay. So the first official synagogue, a lot of people may have heard who saw the first slideshow, was called Temple Beth Shalom in Santa Ana, which is still in existence today, doing very well, very successful synagogue. What I discovered in my research, and I did not know this when I published the book, is that there was an earlier synagogue that had been established. It never had a building, but it was called Congregation B'nai B'rith. B'nai B'rith is an organization, but this was not the organization. If you can see, there's not the apostrophe after the B. That was their big distinction. And so I'm just going to read this, and then if you have questions, please hold them for afterwards. There's not a lot of slides. Though most people are unaware, Orange County's first official synagogue was established, I have an error there, in 1920 and named Congregation B'nai B'rith. It was led by Rabbi Jacob Boucher of Colorado, who moved to Santa Ana with his wife to lead the fledgling synagogue of just 26 families, very tiny. Though short-lived, this was the first real attempt in Orange County to establish a Jewish synagogue and a Hebrew school, but it would be another 20 years before Temple Beth Shalom made it a success. But For me, this is really important because it shows that there was a movement afoot for the community to establish themselves rather than going to Long Beach or LA, etc. So this is a family called the Zarinsky siblings, and they moved to Santa Ana from the East Coast in 1912. Their descendants do live in Orange County today and are very successful and a big part of the community. The four siblings are, left to right, Eddie, Francis, Betty, and Carl. In 1923, Francis married a gentleman named Louis Weinberg who had immigrated from Austria. He started out as a produce peddler, with a cart, which is very typical for most immigrants. You start out doing whatever you can. He became very successful in the restaurant business. Is there feedback? Is this a problem? No? He was one of the founders of Temple Beth Shalom. He served as president of the synagogue. Their son Martin was born in 1925. He was a well-known attorney, and his wife Elaine and their son David continued the family tradition of active involvement in Orange County organizations, both Jewish and secular, which is a theme. Okay, this I love. This is Maxie Dorf and his wife Colleen. He was one of the giants of swing, if anybody knows the Balboa dance move. Okay, he was known as the King of Balboa. At the young age of 17, he became part of the legendary Big Four swing dance troupe in LA, appearing in several films with Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland, and he regularly played one of the talented teenagers in Andy Hardy films. The Balboa, if you are a dancer, is the dance step that originated at the Balboa Pavilion in Newport Beach in the 1920s, swept the country in the 1930s, and Maxie is considered by many to be the greatest Balboa dancer that ever lived. During World War II and the Korean War, he served with distinction in the Navy as a combat photographer, and when he returned, he went back to dancing and then started teaching. He made significant contributions to the Balboa's comeback in the 1930s, and he continued to dance pretty much until the day of his death in 2000. So this man was committed. I wish I had a better picture of his face. I don't, but I love this photo because it shows him doing the dance with his wife. So this is the Blake family, and you're going to see a common theme. It was very common for Jews and Christians to either work together, to marry, and to raise their family, again, because there was very little anti-Semitism. So it was acceptance. There was okay, you're working hard, you're here, you're contributing to our community. Great. So if you see this is their family home, 1539 East 4th Street in Santa Ana. And older brother Bob, far right, had been in the Army since 1941, and Dick, or Richard, far left, had enlisted in 43. Their parents, Al and Francis, were from Omaha. They settled in Santa Ana in 1931. Al was not Jewish, Francis was, and the boys were raised with the knowledge that they were Jewish, but received very little Jewish education. But it wasn't hidden from them, it was just, this is who we are. After returning from World War II, Dick joined the Young Men's Club at OC's first synagogue, Temple Beth Shalom, and was introduced to his future wife Estelle by her cousin. They joined Temple Beth Tikva of Fullerton in 65 because that's where they lived, and they were very active, again, in secular and Jewish. Something I want to point out, it's very interesting, Dick chose to marry a Jewish woman and become Jewish and stay Jewish. His brother wasn't interested. His brother married a non-Jewish woman, and that's also very common. They were mixed, and so you see that. Both served their country proudly, and both were good contributors to the community. So this is the first temple. This was a church, and it's now a church again. So this is a building of faith. It's in Santa Ana at the corner of 8th and Bush Street. It was founded, the synagogue itself was founded in 43, but they didn't have enough money to buy the building until 1945. And so it's the first established synagogue besides B'nai B'rith. It occupied its first building in 1945. Conservative temple. In Judaism, conservative does not mean Republican. Conservative means there's different branches. There's Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox. So Reform is more mellow, I guess you could call it. Very involved, very Jewish, but not really big on rituals. Orthodox are really all about the rituals and following the rules and the commandments. Conservative, which is what I am, is sort of in between, where you follow the rules, but men and women pray together. It's more I'm comfortable with it, I was raised with it. But so when you see conservative, that's what that means, when you see it with Judaism with a big C. And,
More modern.
it's more modern, yeah, whoever said that. Yes. So Beth Emet is a conservative synagogue. It's also still here, it's in Anaheim. And 1960s, the Jewish community added a lot of synagogues, up to 18, because the population grew. A lot of people were here after World War II, the soldiers settled, they had families, and they wanted a place to worship. And so you saw that with churches as well. There's a big growth all throughout Orange County. Today, there are 36 Jewish houses of worship of all denominations. Are we good? It is, right?
I think the closer you get to it, the more she's...
Should I stay away? Thank you, Chris. Is that a little better? Not really. Okay. I'll try to talk lower. My mother always said I talk too loudly. Okay, I love this photo. So the girl on the left is 3 years old. Her name was Rosamund, but they called her Pat. I don't know why. That's her 7-year-old sister Lorette, and they're in front of Temple Beth Shalom in 1945, right when it opened. According to the sign behind them, there were no services on Saturday morning, and the minister was Rabbi Levine. So this was a Reform synagogue, which met the needs of most of the Jews in Orange County at the time. And the girl that became a woman on the right, was the first woman who was married in the synagogue. So, just a little note. And I got this from her mother. Okay, so all of you are familiar with the Balboa Pavilion, yes? Okay, so I found this little tidbit. I was thrilled. Art Vronsky was a second-generation American. It's quite unusual. At this time, most Jews came to the United States in the early 1900s. So at this point, his family had come much earlier, and they were from Texas and Pasadena. They moved to the Balboa Peninsula, and Art Vronsky became a lifelong fisherman. Absolutely adored it. A little bit unusual for a Jewish man, honestly, but it was his thing. And he served as a machinist during World War II, and he settled back in Balboa. And his family purchased the deteriorated pavilion in 1947 and rebuilt it and restored it to its former glory. They operated it until 1960 when they sold it. And Vronsky was a boater, a fisherman, and a businessman. He worked hard to preserve Newport's history, and when he passed away in 2007, he was described as having helped shape this coastal town. So this is just another example of Jewish involvement in icons in Orange County, and things that are just everybody knows about, along with Maxie. So, and it's hard to see, but that's a picture of him. Zeta Beta Tau is a Jewish fraternity, and that was him at UC Berkeley. Okay, so this is something more important to the Jewish community, I guess, but when you are listed in the United Welfare Fund at this time, it meant you had arrived. Like your community was large enough that you were a presence in the United States, and this is the listing from 46 and 47. The United Welfare Fund it would gather money from the Jewish community to help organizations, both Jewish and non-Jewish, in the United States and in Europe. So in 1939, they were helping German Jews, they were helping refugees, etc. And they still exist today, but not in the same capacity. So you can see there's Ivy Stein, president on the left, Sam Hurwitz, secretary. Sam was the go-to guy in the Jewish community. If you were new to town and you were Jewish, that's where you went. If you wanted to have a wedding, his wife would cook some, make some meals and bake some cookies. His daughter would play the piano when you'd get married in the house, and they'd rent a rabbi from Long Beach. That's what he was the unofficial leader of the Jewish community. I obviously never met him, but he and his wife Edith were supposed to be incredibly warm, loving, caring. And they also helped found Temple Beth Shalom, and they were major volunteers, again, in the larger community. Sam served, I think, on the city council. He had a business for many years on 4th Street called Horowitz's Haberdashery. I love that word. I wish it would come back. Okay, this is Bernie Resnick, San Juan Capistrano Cougar. So Bernie, he played guard for the San Juan Capistrano San Juan Capistrano Cougars during his senior year of high school. He was born in Rochester, and he moved to San Clemente in 1951 when he was entering 10th grade. And I don't know if you know anything about Rochester, New York, but it's very Jewish. And it must have been such a shock for him to come out west to a community where people were like, what? Who? What are you? But you can see he was like, I'm here. He played basketball, football, he joined the band, drama club, the rifle club, the real estate club, and the industrial arts club. His parents, Louis and Sarah, ran the family business, ironically called Shamrock Cleaners and Laundry, because they bought it from an Irish couple and they weren't going to change the name because everybody knew it as Shamrock and they weren't going to go to, you know, Star of David or whatever. So, exactly, and they weren't going to do that either. So this photo, actually, I've been to the San Juan Capistrano Unified School District. It is a centerpiece photo on their wall, and I think it's wonderful. All right, so this is B'nai B'rith, and I actually made a mistake. It should have an apostrophe there. This is Temple Beth Shalom. This is the first synagogue that I told you about. And this is the men's club, or the B'nai B'rith. It's a men's group. It's a lodge. It's kind of like the, you know, any sort of fraternal organization that people gather together.
Elks, moose.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So this was inside the original Temple Beth Shalom, and it was named the Orange County Lodge. Very creative. It was founded in 1938 and existed for over 20 years. There were many charters, and there were lodges for men and almost as many chapters. For women, it was called a chapter. And as well as units for, like I said, for both men and women. Has anybody ever heard of the Dolls for Democracy program? No. Okay, so really interesting. It was huge here in Orange County, and I'm going to be doing something about that. There was a documentary about it. So it was founded by the B'nai B'rith Women's Organization, and what they would do is there was a woman who handmade dolls about the size of a Barbie, like 12 inches tall, and of famous figures throughout the world who had promoted democracy, American ideals, freedom. So you had the woman Juliette Lowe. I think she founded the Girl Scouts.
Yes.
Okay, so she was an example. You had Helen Keller, Benjamin Franklin, President Roosevelt. You had all of these very famous American figures, and the goal was that the woman would go into elementary schools. This is way before cell phones, obviously. This was the 50s and 60s. And you would take the dolls with you, and you would show 4 or 5 of them, and you would discuss them with the children and discuss what their lives meant, what the ideals that they had, stood for, and it was a hugely successful program. Many of the dolls are now in museums, and I have to say the Jewish Historical Society has over 24 dolls. So we're in the middle of restoring some of them. Some of them have been very well kept, others not so much. But looking at it now, it feels very quaint, but I think it made quite an impact, and the whole goal was to go into public schools and do this. Okay, this is a bar mitzvah from the 1950s. I just think it's a great photo. It's just such a classic 1950s. They're all so proud that this young man is getting bar mitzvah. Does everybody know what a bar mitzvah is? Okay, just checking. So for several years, Temple Beth Emet, which was Orange County's first conservative synagogue, was in a house. It was called the House on Emily Street. They bought a house, like a little bungalow. And they had a Hebrew school there, they had services there. By 1963, they had grown large enough to build a synagogue on Cerritos Avenue, where it still is today, though now they share it with a church. But that's, again, that's history in the making, is that you see buildings of faith move from one faith to another, and they share, and, so there's something, quite nice about that. Okay, remember the Zerinskis that I showed you before, the 4 siblings? Mm-hmm. So they were very successful business people, and this was a restaurant in downtown. I think this was Anaheim. No, this is Santa Ana. It was called the Lancers. It had obviously been closed. I don't know if it was being refurbished. Mimi Zerinsky, very Jewish name, was the hostess. And other family establishments include the Club Gardens, the Savoy, designated historical landmark, and the Blinking Owl Bar, all of which were in Santa Ana. So he started out as a fruit peddler, one of them, and they grew into this very successful restaurant business. Okay, are you all familiar with Eichler Homes? Okay, so Joseph Eichler was Jewish. He was born in 1900 in New York City to a Jewish immigrant family. He became famous, as we all know, especially here in Orange County, for building architect-designed, mass-produced homes at affordable prices, which was unheard of at the time. This was after World War II, when there was a lot of vets coming home and they needed housing. He was also the first large-scale tract builder to sell to minorities, including African Americans, which was unheard of at the time. Close to 600 Eichlers were constructed here in Orange County, the Forever Homes tract in Fullerton, the Fairhaven, Fairmeadow, and Fair Hills tracts in Orange, and right here in Orange. And by the way, now they're not so cheap. They sell for a lot of money. They are considered American icons, and Joseph Eichler just felt like Orange County, the most Eichler homes are here in Orange County, of any place in the country. So, thank you, Joseph. And this was a brochure from 1960. I just love the way it's done. So, remember I told you about Temple Beth Emet that had been in a house, in a sort of a small craftsman? This is their groundbreaking ceremony pamphlet. Not really much to say about it, just to show that the Jewish community had come to such a point where it was able to build this beautiful facility with lots of land. Eventually they added a Hebrew school. And they also, I love this, every year they had a interfaith Thanksgiving service. I don't know the name of the church. I'm sorry, but it was also in Anaheim.
It's West Anaheim Methodist.
Thank you.
Anaheim Methodist Church.
What did he say?
Anaheim Methodist Church.
Anaheim Methodist Church. And so every year, they don't do it anymore, but they would have the choir from Beth Emet and the choir from the Methodist Church, and they would get together and they would have an interfaith service the day before Thanksgiving. Again, another example of the connection between the different faith communities. Whoop. What did I do? Okay. So I just love that the Sam's Kosher Meat is next to McDonald's. I think that's very telling. Most of the Jews in Orange County, at the beginning, it changed around the 80s, were not religious. They were very Jewish, they were very identified, but they didn't keep kosher, they didn't go to services all the time. It wasn't that kind of community. It developed differently. Orange County is much more spread out. It's not like Boyle Heights in LA or the Lower East Side of New York. You had a different energy here. But there were some people that were kosher. And so Sam's Kosher Meat in Garden Grove was really the only place that you could go until another market opened in Los Alamitos. But both butchers were located in North County, which is where most of the religious Jews lived. And so if you needed kosher meat, whatever part of Orange County you're from, that's where you had to go. I don't know who knows anything about kosher meat, but it has to be salted. There's not allowed to be any blood in the meat, which is why I don't like meat. So you would have to get the meat and then salt it when you got home, which is a total pain, but people who were committed would do it. But this is, now there's a kosher market, it's called OC Kosher, and you can get kosher meat at Trader Joe's and at Ralph's and Gelson's or anywhere that you go, it's not a problem. But Sam ran this market for years, and again, the picture is just priceless. Okay, so this is, Hadassah is a Jewish organization like B'nai B'rith, and this is just showing that it was established in 1962, so that the community was growing and we were growing our, organizations, and this was one of them. This is a women's group. And this is another women's group called ORT, Organization for Rehabilitation Through Training. It's still in existence, and it was founded in 1880 in St. Petersburg, Russia, to provide professional vocational training for young Jews. Today, it's still going strong, but now it's expanded its work to any young people who are in need. So if you have communities in need, who are having trouble, ORT is a go-to organization for very little charge to help young people get a step up. This is the very first Federation directory Federation of the Jewish Community is an umbrella organization. It brings us all together. So a lot of synagogues are connected with it, the Historical Society is connected with it, all these different, 100,000 of us in Orange County out of a population of 8 million, I think.
3 million.
3 million. I'm way off, he knows.
8 million's LA.
Okay, thank you, 3 million. But the Jewish population is quite small. But this is a big deal, and I was lucky enough to find the original directory. I found one, and I was very excited. And it's also a wealth of information because it talks about all the different, communal organizations in the community at the time. This is a fantastic story. This is Sharon Bernstein. This is before the 6-Day War, because I thought maybe she got a sympathy vote, but it's before that. So she was one of only 5 Jews in her high school, and when she entered the Miss Anaheim pageant, it was suggested that she change her last name to have a better chance of winning. She refused to do so and went on to win against 23 other contestants. One of the most photographed Miss Anaheims in the city's history. She raised her children in Orange County. She continues to live here today. She's just as beautiful. I've interviewed her. She is lovely. And I think, here's a teenage girl saying, no, that's my name. This is who I am. I don't care if I lose because of it. And she won. And she's gorgeous. Look at that. Okay, this is from the early 1970s. This is just showing, again, a lot of these are more for the Jewish community per se, because I give these lectures to both Jewish organizations and not. But this is an early meeting, and apparently this guy was some big hot actor, and all the women are like fawning over him. But they raised $25,000 their first year, which was a huge amount then. And then we still have this annual luncheon, which I'm actually going to next week, which is a Jewish women's event, which we still hold every year. Okay, so support for Israel is big in the Jewish community, and it's not Israel right or wrong. I don't want to get into politics here, but it is essential as a Jew to have a country that we can go to. So, longer conversation. But on May 6, 1973, Orange County held its first ever community-wide celebration of the founding of the State of Israel. It was created by Ken Levin, who's a friend of mine and a lovely, lovely man. And it was their 25th anniversary, and we still have it going on. And admission was free, and it drew thousands of participants. It changes location. Currently, it's at the JCC in Irvine. But this was the first ever. And this is the last slide. Again, growth of the Jewish community. This shows Orange County's first Jewish community center in Laguna Beach. It was a big success. It was founded by Polly Sloan, who sadly just passed away, but she was 99, so she led a good, long life. And she came out here from San Bernardino, which had a very vibrant Jewish community, and said, hey, we need a Jewish community center. We need a place where we can meet and go have fun, and our kids can go to camp, et cetera, et cetera. And it succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. And they opened up a second one, and now we have a really successful JCC in Irvine where I work. Shout out to the J. And it's open to anybody. You don't have to be Jewish. So we have a lot of people there who come to work out, send their kids to the preschool. Yes, it's Jewish, but it's like a lot of my friends went to Catholic school because it was the good school and it was cheap. So it didn't matter. And I think that's it.
Willing to take some questions?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes, sir, in the back.
I was always under the impression that Madam Jessica was from Poland as Jewish. Is that wrong or right?
That is
She was out there
incorrect.
by herself.
She was not Jewish. She was Polish, and she was apparently a very talented actress, and she was very involved in the community here, but no, she herself was not Jewish. Yes, sir. Luke.
Well, we were Reformed conservative,
Yeah.
and my mother still insisted on buying at the kosher meat because she said it was a higher quality and the animals were killed humanely. They didn't put a bullet in the steer's head.
Right. Yeah.
They killed the animal humanely.
Right. So what Lou said is that even though he wasn't raised religious, particularly, his mother still bought kosher meat because the way the animal is slaughtered is more humane. That is true in principle, that you are supposed to do it in such a way that the animal feels no pain and does not suffer, so it's supposed to be done very quickly. And the reason that you're not supposed to eat or have any blood is because that's the life source of the animal, and you're not supposed to have that. And that you also say a prayer when the animal is slaughtered, thanking God for giving us sustenance.
And kosher is very similar to halal.
Very similar to halal, yeah. Yes, sir.
The closest temple to where I live in North Tustin is Beth Shalom on the corner of Tustin and Fairhaven.
That's right.
Is there a connection between that and the original one other than the name?
Yeah, it's been the same synagogue. They originally started in Santa Ana at 8th and Bush, thank you. And then when they had enough money, I didn't show it here, in 1962, so around the same time, with the increasing growth of the community, they moved into the building that they're currently at. They also had a big fire a few years ago, and they redid the synagogue, and it's beautiful. They did unfortunately, they lost a lot of archives. I was very sad about that. But they did a wonderful job, and they're thriving.
A lot more than 8 families now.
A lot more, yes. Any other questions?
Are you in touch with Martin Brower?
I am in touch with Martin, yes, yes.
I know Martin.
Yeah, he's wonderful. He wrote a book about Orange County, about the Jewish community, and also about his experiences working for the Irvine Company. Very intelligent, very knowledgeable. So I got some of my information from him as well. And he is, he's mentioned in the book.
He's not well.
I know.
Pardon me, what?
He's not well.
No, I was just had lunch with him today.
Oh, and he was fine?
He was fine.
Oh, great.
I'm really glad to hear that, because I had heard, well, then rumors are spreading that shouldn't be spreading. Okay, thank you for updating. Yeah. Yes, sir.
This may be back from your first lecture. But you mentioned earlier that San Juan Capistrano as one of the focal points of the towns where Jews first lived.
Yes.
Is there a reason for that? It seemed like a strange place.
Opportunity. So the answer is there wasn't a large Jewish community there. There was basically one Jewish family. It was the Mendelssohns. And they had the Mendelssohn Mission Inn. They were right across from the mission, and they were there for many years until the 1930s. Max was a Civil War veteran, and in 1874 he came out, again, opportunity, and there was an inn that was run down, and he and his wife purchased the inn and the land that it was on, made it into the Mendelssohn Mission Inn, and ran it, and his family, his son continued to run it until the 1930s when it was demolished because it was very run down. They also had a saloon. I have a picture of that as well. And he was known as Marcos because they couldn't. A lot of the population was Hispanic, and they couldn't say Max. It was too hard for them. And he said Marx, and they were like, Marcos, you're Marcos, and they would call him Sir Marcos. So, yes, sir.
You mentioned one of the recurring events was started by a man named Ken Levin.
Yes.
Well, that would be the same Ken Levin who taught music in the for the junior high schools it was in Santa Ana.
I don't know. I know his wife is a social worker. Her name's Nancy.
Okay. He's married, that's the wrong guy.
Okay. Then it is not. It's a common name.
That's true. I thought it could have been a typo.
Yeah. It is a common name.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering if there are any video clips of the Jewish families from this period of time.
Unfortunately, not that I know of. Certainly later, we have lots of video clips. That is something I could check. There might be movies that were made of weddings, for sure, that have been restored. We have a lot of photographs, but we don't have video per se. And I think that's also the general population. You're not going to see a lot of videos made of movie reels of that time. It just wasn't as present as now everything is recorded. But at that time it was
What
quite
brought
different.
this question to mind was dance at Balboa.
Yes.
So I was wondering if that was ever internalized on video.
I know, I've seen him in the movies. I've seen Maxie in the movies, as part of the dance. That is something I would absolutely love to look up. Thank you for that idea. I think that would be great to have the footage of him dancing. Yeah, thank you. So, but I don't know offhand, if there is. But that I would assume there might be. Anybody else? Thank you very much. I have business cards here. If anyone wants to contact me, my information is there. I do have books for sale, and I will be at the OC Archives Bazaar on Sunday. So I like Chris so much, I just had to see him again. And I'm very grateful to you for hosting me and for coming out to learn about the Jews of Orange County, and thank you very much. It's nice being in person again.
Yes, being in person is great. Thank you so much for
Of course.
doing this evening. And yeah, do come check out our booth at the Archives Bazaar and ours and a whole lot of others. So it should be fun on Sunday. And just want to thank you all for coming out to join us this evening. And again, I'll just remind you, we do have sign-up sheets back at the Orange Table for the annual dinner, and you can register and pay for that tonight if you would like to, and also membership if you're not already a member. You get by joining. By the time you come to a few meetings and don't have to pay the $5 non-member donation at the door, and by the time you get the rake off for the annual dinner, you've probably paid for your membership and then some, so you might as well join too while you're at it. So, anyway, thank you all for coming this evening. We will hope to see you all next month, and do help yourself to goodies at the back table, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.